I was really shocked to hear that 2007 veterans died by suicide over 15 years. That is 3 per fortnight that we are losing as a community to suicide.
Yeah, and that's 78 per year, and it's 78 lives that shouldn't be lost.
Absolutely. I'm Nicky Sloan. You're listening to Community Matters, the podcast that discusses issues in the community with people who are making a difference. And today I'm joined by Lachlan Stevens. Lachlan is a very humble man. He describes himself as a founder, as a director, and a proud veteran. Welcome, Lachlan.
Thanks for having me, Nicky, and really appreciate the invite and the efforts to highlight a cause which is very significant to me, and I hope to kind of talk about that and all the other kind of stuff that we do as a business, but also our charity as well.
Yeah, well, I would really like to start with this understanding why we are losing so many of our veterans to suicide, and not just veterans who've actually served at the front, but veterans who've never seen action. We are losing them. It speaks to something cultural in our defence forces.
Yeah, and the numbers definitely reflect that. There was, and most of your audience would know that there was recently a Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide, and it identified that the suicide rate in ex-serving or veterans, males, it's 21% higher than the average population, and for females it's over 100% higher. So there is something kind of cultural going on there. It's not just, and when you think of veteran suicide, you might have connotations or think about what they've experienced and seen in war and post-traumatic stress, but there's some, and the Royal Commission definitely identified that from the moment people were recruited, trained, their experience whilst at units, and also on deployment, and how they're treated on the way out, are all contributing factors to these higher rates of suicide.
Those are shocking statistics. 21% higher for males, 100% higher for females. And I think that's something that we don't always think about, the number of women who are also serving in our ADF.
Yeah, for me personally, I joined at 21 years old. I went over to Afghanistan on 2 occasions. I was a high-risk searcher, so my job was to search for improvised explosive devices. I lost some fellow members in my unit in 2010, Sapper Jacob Morlan and Darren Smith, and a dog explosive detection dog, Herbie, and again in 2012 we lost some members, and for me it wasn't the post-traumatic stress of that. I got back with rose-colored glasses on, that this feeling of doing something higher and significant for my country and for my my army was going to continue, and it didn't. The war transitioned. I transitioned out of the Combat Engineer Regiment, and then I changed jobs, and I lost a sense of purpose, and subsequently discharged after losing that sense of purpose, and I spiraled into depression and anxiety, and it wasn't specifically post-traumatic stress. On reflection, it was a lack of service, and I didn't have that pride in my service and purpose. And a big part of what I do now, which is service in a different type, it's service to our community, and it's service to a cause which isn't going to fight a war or serving our country. I my experience is a lot different to others. People experience bullying, harassment. They experience not meeting their purpose in their service. You see all the flashy ads in recruitment videos on TV for to join the Defence Force, and it looks exciting. And you might join, and in reality, it's something completely different. And that expectation management mightn't be there, and that can cause feelings, emotions, and people to feel a particular way about their service, that they haven't done enough. They might feel feelings of being worthless. All of these issues, along with a vast amount more issues, have been identified in the Royal Commission's finding, and have come out in the form of a number of recommendations. And it's quite disappointing to think that none of those recommendations have been fulfilled a year on after that report has been released. So it's definitely on the government and large ESOs or ex-service organisations to put their hands up and take accountability for these issues.
Goodness, you've given us so much to think about there, and I think that sense of purpose is really interesting. I think when you talk about the way that the ADF recruits, and I think about those career days that that all the kids go to while they're at school. And the ADF stands are really exciting. Like, we're trying to recruit people into community services, and it's really hard to compete with the ADF and their really exciting stands.
There's a big part around expectation management, and that's certainly my lived experience with my service. There is a myriad of issues, and it's almost... And we see this replicated in other social issues. It is not a difficult... it is a difficult situation to untangle, and you need people and all the organisations and stakeholders involved in this issue to be coordinated. And it feels to me, especially within the ex-service organisations that I currently deal with, it is quite dysfunctional. And so the worst outcome is that individual veterans living in our communities don't receive the care, treatment they need. They don't feel supported. They feel isolated and alone, and they feel let down, especially by the government that is meant to be looking after these veterans who have signed on the dotted line to the value of their lives in some cases, and they have a basic expectation to be looked after, and these needs aren't being met.
I think that's really interesting, and I think we've got a long history of doing that. And I was reflecting this morning on my two grandfathers. One grandfather was a miner, coal miner, and it was a protected profession during the war, World War II. Just lovely, fun, lovely granddad. My other granddad was a sergeant major in North Africa, and was a scary man for most of my life. And my father was his eldest, and he was always scared of his dad. And not until the eighth child, my uncle, he had a really different experience. And I just think that my granddad came home and just had to get on with it, like deal with it all himself. And it sounds to me like nothing's changed. Like that was, 1940s. Yeah. Nothing's changed.
And it's manifested in, and the outcomes seems to be the same. And it's not the issue, you're right. It doesn't seem to be getting better, and it's not, from my perspective, getting better. I've had 6 friends that I've served with take their own lives. I've had 3 lost in battle. double have taken their own lives for a number of different reasons, but the underlying factor is their service. And just like the Vietnam veterans experienced coming back with the public reaction often not being what they expected, we are doing it in a and it's my argument that it's been done in a little bit more of a subtle way. There's royal commissions into defence and veteran suicides, and there's this projection that we care for veterans, but that's not manifesting in terms of action. And that's where I get a lot of my motivation for doing what we do at a grassroots level, at a community level, because we can put out all the policies that we want. We can throw as much money at a problem, whatever that problem is, whether it's a defence or a veterans problem, or whether it's any other social justice issue. We can throw as much money at the problem as we want, but if there's not the right people on the grass, at the grassroots in the communities that are going to execute it in an authentic, genuine way, that the problem's not going to get fixed. And that's what Walk With Us Kokoda tries to achieve.
I'm glad you came to Walk With Us Kokoda, because I understand you just come back.
Yeah, just came back from 96 Ks walking the Kokoda Trail. We took 14 veterans over, 18 people total, and achieved some amazing results for those individuals. Walk With Us Kokoda, the program itself, we recruit veterans just like me, discharged from the Defence Force, or maybe still in the Defence Force, making a decision to potentially leave, but all of which have underlying leadership qualities. They have a propensity to want to do better. They want to find a renewed sense of purpose, and we look at our initiative as being the incubator to making those ideas come to life. And we use walking the Kokoda Trail, where our forefathers have walked, one of the greatest generation in our history. That war was quite pivotal. We use that as inspiration and motivation, or the canvas, if you will, to paint that picture for those individual veterans about what their service looks like on the other side of their military service.
So you're just actively doing that. You just brought it together and started doing it, yeah?
Yeah, so we're supported by RSL New South Wales. I'm involved in City of Wollongong RSL sub-branch. I'm on the executive there, and after walking Kokoda in 2023, we filmed a documentary for our Barstool Brothers charity alongside Man Walk, another men's mental health charity, which is a national charity. I was inspired to re-engage with my veteran tagline. I don't like words like veteran, or and I definitely don't like that word, and being known as or didn't like that word and didn't like being known as a veteran, because it has connotations towards being broken. And I wanted to be a business owner. I wanted to be a community leader. I wanted to be a charity founder. I didn't want to be a veteran. But after that walk in 2023, I wanted to be a veteran again. And I joined my local sub-branch, and I said, well, how can, if Kokoda's done this to me and made me feel like I want to give back, surely it can do that for other veterans. So we teamed up with RSL New South Wales, and the program is growing exponentially every year, and we're really proud of the impact we can have in communities all around New South Wales, but particularly in the Illawarra community.
You mentioned feeling that you felt like veteran equaled broken. And you talked about sense of purpose, and how could we as a community support veterans to to still feel that being a veteran is a sense of purpose, how can we as a community make sure that we give veterans the respect they deserve? Because, like community service workers who are giving of themselves to make things better in the community, our veterans have given so much of themselves to make the world a better and safer place. How do we as a community do better at supporting veterans?
It is a really difficult one because veterans and veterans organisations, ex-service organisations, need to be a little bit more outward facing. And I found that with our sub-branch. When I came into the sub-branch, it's very insular, looks inwards on itself and supports veterans and their families, which is fantastic. But there's not that outward projection into our communities and leveraging off the vast amount of experience and talent within social enterprises and other not-for-profits and council, as an example. So a large part of my role is to start looking externally and bring communities on the journey. Through that process, they develop an understanding. We've achieved some great things at Wollongong Golf Club, as an example, and they're a huge proponent of Veterans Affairs now in the redevelopment of City Diggers Club. And whilst the RSL has no financial interest in that club operation, we can still educate and it be a meeting place after Anzac Day where we can join with our community, not only commemorate the lives lost in wars past, but also celebrate what veterans bring to the table. There's a huge amount, for example, that can be done in terms of advocating for veteran employment. We both employ people and skills can be taught. Those underlying values are much more difficult to identify and be taught. But with veterans, they are loyal, they are hardworking, they understand authenticity, community, they are looking for service. They have so many good, rich values. They mightn't have the skills and the qualifications, and it might be a little bit of hard work to invest in that person at the start, but it will pay dividends in terms of retention and outcomes in the future. Someone gave a shot on me at Merlin Entertainments when I discharged from the Defence Force, and I had no experience. I didn't know what a profit and loss was. I didn't know what HR was. I didn't understand. But he gave me a shot, and now I'm running one of the most successful restaurants in the Illawarra, and I've started a charity, and I've feel a sense of purpose, and that has come from a member of the public that was willing to invest a little bit of time. And I encourage all business owners and organisations to look at look towards their HR function and challenge whether they have capacity to hire veterans. Because by osmosis, that creates understanding, and that understanding leads to action.
And I can see you talk so much about service and sense of purpose, and I could see that has such an alignment with our sector, with community services, and it seems to me that there would be a natural alignment for people coming out of the ADF to be using their sense of purpose to some good. So I think this is something we should definitely explore a bit further. I did want to talk about you raised the issue of Anzac Day, and that Anzac Day, and you can go and celebrate with with former comrades, but also with the community on Anzac Day. I've been going to Anzac Day services for decades and I am blown away now at the growth in numbers. Dawn service now is so big. The marches are so big now, much bigger than they used to be. How do we go to the community and say, you're proud, you're celebrating our veterans one day a year, let's do it more? Like, we should be taking that energy and that passion that our country has found now and really bring it 365 days of the year.
That is a very interesting point, because in a lot of respects, I feel there's a sentiment generally that we shouldn't be proud of our country. And there is a number of social issues which might drive that sentiment. It might be a controversial opinion, but I go to a number of different schools around Anzac Day and give speeches, and generally there is a last post played, and I went to Illawarra Sports High and last post played, and it was complete silence, and it was beautiful. Then the Australian National Anthem played, and I looked around the 900 people and I couldn't see anyone singing. And I thought that was indicative to some of the social commentary. And whilst we don't have a perfect history in our country, especially related to Indigenous affairs, but these two issues can coexist. Indigenous people fought on the battlefield in World War I and World War II and all wars side by side. And what's beautiful about the Australian military and what's beautiful about the army is it's not about your gender, your race, your sexuality. It's about the uniform and the patch on your arm that binds all of that. And if we look at history, especially, and don't get me wrong, there is atrocities committed in wars. It's not a good thing. It's never pretty. But if you look at war and what it extracts and the lessons it extracts, particularly around mateship, sacrifice, courage, endurance, these are all values that are defined at the greatest point in war. And there is something very valuable in accepting, acknowledging, and celebrating that. Because if we learn from history, and if we take a look at that history, whether it's Indigenous affairs or whether it is military, and look at what is good about that part of history and those events, and try and apply that to our lives, the world would be a great place. Everyone would be serving their community, maybe not their country, but in a roundabout way, they're serving their country. So there's something beautiful about that. So there is divisive narrative flowing around society just generally, which is propagated by a number of special interests. And I feel that we need to, as a society, just get back to listening a little bit more and understanding, not responding. And the same goes in the veterans field. And that's why I love going over to Kokoda with veterans and listening to their stories, understanding their situations. I mightn't agree with all their points and their directions and decisions, but that's not my place. I just want to understand. I'm learning from you, even if it's not right.
It's interesting that, sometimes you're challenged by some of the views that people have. I think we all get challenged by some of the views that people have, and sometimes we want to try and change those views, and sometimes we learn from them. And so I think that was you made some really good points. I want to go back to how we could make a difference and employing people who have served in the ADF. And if we were to do that as business owners, you're a business owner, you employ people who are veterans, how do we do that really well? What would be different about employing a veteran, and how could I do that and do it really well?
So there is, I think that there's 500,000 veterans in Australia, a lot of which are in New South Wales, and in the Illawarra there is approximately, I believe, and I'm going to get pulled up on this, about 2,500 veterans. A lot of current serving ones that commute up to Moorebank. So I would say that it is on ex-service organisations to get their shit together and consolidate veterans. Because who is consolidating veterans? It's so fragmented at the moment. And once we consolidate veterans, then we can move forward together. You as an employer, I go, where do I start with this? And it's like, well, I don't know. I can ring up Lachlan. I know he's a veteran. He might have a friend. I might not have a friend that's appropriate for your workplace. And so it's not coordinated. So I think that's working at a local level with local government. And ensuring there's pathways into, say, Wollongong City Council to ensure they have Veterans Affairs within their business plan, and then it is they help out Wollongong Sub-Branch fantastically with commemorations and services and whatnot. But it is about coordinating and pushing people into the one area and then moving forward from there. So we're a little bit away from getting to a very structured approach. It is very fragmented at the moment. So unfortunately, I don't have the right answer for you.
But you raise such great points, because what we probably need to start from is an area of being veteran friendly, that we should be veteran friendly. And if we were to do that, then maybe there could be ways of having a more coordinated approach to employing veterans. I do think that you've made some good points about your ex-service organisations and their potential role in really supporting veterans into that transition. You talked about the transition earlier, and I can only imagine how hard that is to transition from the ADF into civilian life again. And that would be a great place for those ex-service organisations to start. And then if they did that in a coordinated way, we might be able to have a more coordinated way of employing veterans too.
Yeah, and that's why I'm involved in City of Wollongong RSL sub-branches, and we support a lot of the other smaller sub-branches up and down our coast. It's about creating a relevant product, first and foremost, for younger veterans within the sub-branch. So what does that mean? That means a gym program every Saturday, which we run in conjunction with Raising the Bar Foundation and Walk With Us. His boy Elroy provides free bacon and egg rolls and coffees afterwards. It's about doing free coffee and cake on Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's about doing family events and involving family a little bit more. They're unsung heroes of the veteran narrative, in my opinion. So it's about creating that organisation to be relevant for younger veterans to be involved. Once they see relevance and once they're given value, then they can be converted to action. So Walk With Us Kokoda, which runs parallel to RSL, is giving value. We're taking veterans over on a sponsorship to Kokoda, and then we're using Kokoda and history to provide context to service and commitment to service. And then on the back end, so we just got back. On the back end is then kind of getting them to be the change makers. And that might come in the form of a veteran lawn mowing program, which one of the veterans is doing, Paul Biddle. He is going around and mowing old blokes' lawns who mightn't be able to do it. But more importantly, sitting down for a cup of tea and a bicky and a little bit of social connection afterwards. One other thing that we're doing off the back of it is meeting with state, federal and local governments here in Wollongong about creating a Middle East area of operations memorial up at Flagstaff Hill, and that's high on my agenda. Using these younger veterans to be a part of these projects gives them a little bit of taste of what impact can feel, what you and I feel from service to our communities. It gives you the warm and fuzzies. It wants you to make you do better. And we need to encourage more of these individuals to start taking action, but we've got to hold their hands and give them the skills to be able to have cut through in what is a very complex which is change management, which is a very complex and frustrating process. But our charity can cut through all the crap for the individuals to experience that success.
Yeah, and through that, get back that sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Such an interesting discussion, Lachlan. There's so much more to unpack, I feel like. But is there anything that that you wanted to add that you haven't had the opportunity to say?
There's probably a lot. Anyone knows me, I will ramble on, and I do get very passionate, and I want that. I believe passion is infectious as well. So the only thing I'd love to say is to encourage as many people to go out and just do it. I was at a point in my life where I wanted to end my life, and I didn't feel value in myself. I felt worthless, and a couple of people and surrounding myself with the right people showed me that I had value, and I'm not the brightest person, but I do have passion, and I'm tied to some issues which are very close to me, and you cannot remove that tie. So with that passion, a lot can be achieved. So if there's any veterans out there that is feeling that way, I would encourage you to surround yourself with the right people. Surround yourself with people like myself, who might be able to help you up and move you forward through life, because you have a lot to add and a lot to give to the community, and sometimes, most of the times, that can be the most rewarding thing ever, and it will change your life. So I guess that's a great way for me to kind of wrap up with what I wanted to say.
Fantastic. And I will just point out that we will put all of the contact details for organisations like Open Arms and Lifeline, and really encourage anybody who's feeling that way to reach out for support. Yes, or you can call Lachlan. He just said you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's boy Elroy. Come in Tuesdays, Thursdays. We have a free coffee and cake for veterans. We have the Saturday gym program, and we also run Barstool Brothers, which is a men's mental health charity, which we haven't spoken about today, which doesn't matter, but we'll get there maybe one other time.
I'd love you to come back and we'll talk about Barstool Brothers. Your morning teas for veterans, could other community members come in and talk to veterans there?
Absolutely.
Would that be a great way to break down some barriers? Could I just pop in for a cuppa on a Tuesday or Thursday?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no times. It's sporadic. We're not prescriptive with when people should come in, but certainly pop in. There's always one or two veterans hanging around in his boy Elroy, just by nature of the community that we've built through our business and through the stuff we do with Walk With Us Kokoda.
Oh, there you go. So, yeah, if you want to make some connections and learn more about the veteran community, that's a great place to go to. Wonderful. Now, this podcast is called Community Matters. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about someone in the community who matters to you?
In our local community, I already mentioned the person who gave me an opportunity out of the Defence Force. That's Ian Wood. He's not in our community, but he was in one of my communities with Merlin Entertainments, and he's had a profound impact on my life. In this community and for this segment, it would be Graham Lancaster. So Graham Lancaster's on our board of directors and has been since its inception. He is constantly giving to a number of different causes. And that man is a demonstration of selflessness. He's a demonstration of someone who dances like no one's watching, and someone who will give the shirt off his own back to help you out, and he's going through some health battles at the moment, and he's still maintaining that tempo, and I think Wollongong should be proud of that man.
Absolutely. He is a wonder. If he gives you the shirt off his back, it's probably going to be really colourful too. But he is absolutely an example of giving back to community and doing it always with a smile and with fun. Yeah, what a great choice. Thank you so much, Lachlan. It's been such an interesting discussion. I have learned so much today. I'm sure everyone's learned so much today. I'm definitely getting you back because I know there's more that we need to talk about. But for now, thank you very much. And thank you all for tuning in to Community Matters, the podcast that explores issues in our community with people who are making a difference, just like Lachlan. Please leave us a review, like us, share us, and tune in next time for more stories from our community.